Welcome! Today we are jumping right into JavaScript, which is, without a doubt, one of the biggest programming languages in the world. So if you've ever had that itch to learn how to code but just didn't know where to even begin, well, you've come to the right place. We're about to go from zero to writing your very first line of code right here and right now.
So you know when you're on a website and it just feels alive? Like you click a button and boom, something new appears. Or you get live notifications popping up, or videos just play perfectly. Have you ever stopped to wonder what the magic is behind all that interactivity?
Well, 9 times out of 10, the answer is JavaScript. It is the engine that powers pretty much all the interactive features on the websites you and I use every single day. We're talking about massive companies like Netflix, Walmart, and PayPal. They built their entire user experience around it.
And hey, if you need a little extra motivation, check this out. The average salary for a JavaScript developer in the US is sitting around $72,000 a year. So learning this is not just about building cool stuff, it's an incredibly valuable skill to have in the job market today.
Okay, so that brings us to the big question, right? What in the world is JavaScript? And why does everyone keep calling it the language of the web?
At its heart, JavaScript is what we call a scripting language. Its main job, its whole reason for being, is to make web pages dynamic. I like to think of it like this. If HTML is the skeleton of a website and CSS is the skin and the clothes that make it look good, then JavaScript, that's the nervous system. It's what makes the website actually move, react, and do things.
And what's really wild is just how much JavaScript has grown. It's not just for the stuff you see in your browser anymore, what we call the front end. With amazing tools like Node.js, developers now use it to build the entire back end. The servers and the databases. You can find it running mobile apps, powering real-time chat applications. You can even build games with it. It is seriously versatile.
Now, you might hear people throwing around terms like ECMAScript or ES6 and get a little confused. So what's the deal with that? Well, the easiest way to think about it is that ECMAScript is the standard. It's like the official rulebook or the blueprint. JavaScript is the actual language that's built to follow that blueprint. So ECMA is the organization that writes the rules, and JavaScript is the language that plays by those rules.
And let's just get this one out of the way right now, because it trips up everybody at first. JavaScript is not Java. Nope. They sound kind of similar, and that's literally where the comparison ends. Java is a totally separate, object-oriented programming language. They are completely different tools for completely different jobs.
All right, enough theory. It is time to get our hands dirty. In this part, we are actually going to write our very first line of JavaScript. Let's do this. Let's go from 0 to hello world.
And you know what? It's way simpler than you might think. All you really need is a basic HTML file. Now, here's a pro tip. Always put your script tags right before the closing body tag. Why? Because this lets the browser load up all the visible stuff on the page first, so your user isn't just staring at a blank screen waiting for things to happen. Then, you just write your code inside those tags and open the file in a browser to see your work.
And there it is, the classic first step for literally any programmer. Console.log is basically a command you can give the browser. You're telling it, hey, take this message and print it out in the developer console for me. That console is a little window that lets us see the output from our code. And that semicolon at the end, it's just like a period at the end of a sentence. It tells JavaScript, okay, this command is finished.
Now, while you can write your JavaScript directly inside your HTML file, it's really not the best way to do things, especially as your projects get bigger. There's this really important idea in programming called separation of concerns. The goal is to keep your different types of code separate. You want your content, the HTML, in one place, and your behavior, the JavaScript, in another. It makes your code so much cleaner and easier to work with when you put your JavaScript in its own separate .js file.
Okay, so printing a message is a great first step. But to build anything really useful, our programs need a way to remember things, like a person's username or the high score in a game. And to do that, we use something called variables. These are the absolute fundamental building blocks of any code you'll ever write.
So what even is a variable? The best analogy I've ever heard is to think of it like a labeled box. You can put some information inside the box, and you stick a label on the outside. Then, later on, whenever you need that information, you just call it by its label. It's really just a temporary storage space in the computer's memory. And this is what it looks like in actual code. We use the keyword let to declare that we're making a new variable. Then we give it a name, our label, which in this case is name. Then we use the equal sign to assign a value to it. And here, we're giving it the text mosh. So right now, our program has a box labeled name that's holding the value mosh.
Now, you can't just name your variables anything you want. There are a few rules. The big ones are you can't use a reserved word like let or if, they can't start with a number, and they can't have spaces or hyphens in them. Oh, and this one's important. JavaScript is case-sensitive. That means a variable named name with a lowercase n is totally different from name with a capital N. And as a best practice, always try to make your variable names meaningful. It makes your code way easier to read for you and for anyone else.
You'll mostly see two keywords used to declare variables, let and const. The difference is simple, but it's really, really important. You use let when you think the value inside that variable might need to change later on, but you use const for values that you know should stay constant. They should never change. And honestly, the best practice these days, just use const for everything by default. Only switch over to let if you know for sure that you're going to need to reassign a new value to it down the road.
So, we can store data in variables. Awesome. But how do we actually make our code do things with that data? Well, that's where functions come into play. If variables are the nouns of our code, functions are the verbs. They are the action takers. A function is basically a reusable block of code that's designed to perform one specific task. And that word, reusable, is everything. It means you can write a piece of logic one time, like, say, how to properly greet a user, and then you can just call that function whenever you need it, instead of having to type out the same code over and over and over again. Let's look at a quick example. We start with the keyword function. We give our function a name, here it's greet, and then in the parentheses, we list any inputs it needs. This function needs one input, which we're going to call name. Everything between those curly braces, that's the function's job. In this case, its job is to log a message to the console that says hello, plus whatever name we give it.
Okay, this is a really important distinction that confuses a lot of new developers, so let's clear it up. The variable name inside the function definition, in our example, name, is called a parameter. Think of it as a placeholder. The actual value that we pass into the function when we call it, like the text John, that's the argument. So you could say the parameter is the empty parking spot, and the argument is the car you actually park in it.
And believe it or not, just like that, you've already covered some of the most important, fundamental concepts in all of JavaScript. So let's do a quick recap of what we've gone over and think about where you can go from here. Seriously, take a second to think about what you've just learned. In just a few minutes, you've built a really solid foundation. You now get what JavaScript is and why it is so essential to how the modern web works. You've actually written code, you've stored information using variables, and you've created reusable actions with functions. That's huge. You have taken that critical first step. You've seen how to make a computer listen to your instructions and respond. The groundwork is officially laid. So really, the only question left is, what amazing, interactive, and cool thing are you going to build next?